Alrighty. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pro No Coders Office Hours, episode 299. I'm your host, Cameron. I'm here today with John and Rob. Before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in, we do this 6 times per week where we invite our members onto our Zoom. They can ask us bubble questions, bring us bugs, feature requests, you name it. We can't promise answers, but we do promise you won't suffer alone. And we get it right most of the time, so we'll go ahead and get started. John, you were here just moments before Rob. We'll start with you. What do you have for us today?
As Rob is the newbie, I'll let Rob go first because mine is quite complicated.
I'm just an observer today. I'm here to watch and learn. So, are you, my friend?
Fine. So let me share my screen.
Alrighty.
So, that's not going to help, is it? Okay. So, where do I start with explaining this? So I've started testing my app by creating different users and having them then logging in as different users. And I'm experiencing a problem. So what you'll notice here, I'm just putting out some stuff on this page just so I can see what's going on. So you'll see current users emails John 3, and my current plan type is small, and that is what plan level you're on. So you can be free, small, medium, large, etc. These should be blank because these states haven't been set yet until I do something down here. So this is all fine. And if you can see that, I don't know if you can see the very bottom corner, I've got one error, which is fine. That's just to do with a plugin that I'm still running in a test mode, which is a plugin I've built. So that's all fine. If I log out as this user and I log in, if I can remember the new user, I think it was John Medium. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. Anyway. So if I log in, so I'm now logged in as a different user, and the clue is in the name, in that John Medium should be on a medium plan.
Okay.
And it's not bringing in the plan I'm on, but I think this is just a symptom of a bigger problem because I've got no properties set, which I think I know why, but I've now got 9 errors. And it's all to do with it not authenticating into the API. So there's something going on with why that user isn't authenticating. And there's various other issues. So it appears that when I am when I'm a user that isn't the one I've been using all the time for all my other testing, something is going completely funky presumably in the database. If I go into configuration, I think it was, I was looking at, was that working earlier? Or maybe I've not set it for this. But anyway, so I think if we start with probably the simplest way is, why is it not associating the user with the right plan type? So if you look in my database, there is the working user. That's the one I've been using all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that I've got email confirmed, shouldn't make any difference, first name, frequency keys, etc., etc. That's as it is, frequency, etc. And then all subscription plans you'll see here. So that's John 3, which is working. So that's where small is coming from when I was previously logged in. And that is the plan type that is set for John Medium. And that isn't coming back, nor is it coming back for this other user, John 3. So any user that's not this one seems to be buggered.
Okay, so 2 things. First off, I may have missed it. Don't know if I had seen you sign in with Google to authenticate.
So it isn't a Google authentication. So you register and sign in with your own credentials. The Google part is to do with you register your Google Search Console property. So I'm not using Google for social login.
Okay, gotcha. The errors, though, would be because you haven't authenticated with Google. Is that correct?
No, the errors that are these ones are to do with Google not authenticating, and that's perhaps sort of step 2. But the fact that I'm not authenticating through the API shouldn't make any difference to the plan type.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to probe that real quick and see. But this is when I like using the inspect tool on the bottom right-hand corner, right next to that error. Yep. We'll go ahead and click that. Hover over current user's plan type where the text should be. Let's see. What we're trying to find is the actual value that would be there. Is it appended to that text? Okay, it does look like it. Yep. Click on current user. And so this does look like the character.
Yeah, if I can see the email. Yeah, so it is pulling back the right. So it knows I'm the right user.
All right. Scroll and the next dynamic text there. If we go to subscription.
So you see that's not right. So that'll be why that's failing. So it's not picking up the user has a subscription.
Yeah, interesting. Go back to your database real quick. So we do absolutely have within the subscription. Go to your current user under all users and go to that user. And so the subscription there, it looks like it's calling from the subscription field right there where that's empty. That may be why this is happening.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure how that works because
it's an option set, right? It's not a text, but we're saving an option in there.
Well, so I think it's relating to the plan OS.
Okay. Plan level, right? Small, medium, large. Oh no, options. I see right there. My bad. Okay. So when the user selects the plan, what we need to do is we need to make a change to that user because right now we're making a change to the subscription plan where we're adding the user. But we need then to do, we then need to add the actual subscription to where it has the subscription plan as a record. So if you go to where that would be located, so the flow of when a user signs up for that plan.
Okay, that is in register, which is here. So let me show you so that it's a bit easier to wrap your head around. Let me show you the flow. So this is where I register. If I'm a brand new user, I come along and I fill out these details and I select my plan here and I sign up.
Gotcha.
If I select something other than free, then the next step would be to take me to Stripe, basically, just so you know what's going on.
Gotcha. Okay.
So here is the user. So sign the user up, create a new subscription plan.
Yep.
Subscribe the user to a plan which is all to do with Stripe. Make changes to a user, which might be where things are going wrong.
Yep. This is where we're going to want to add the subscription plan. Let's go ahead and add that.
Okay. So subscription.
Then it's going to be that. Well, it's going to be that input's value, whichever that input is, small, medium, or large. So drop-down plan choices. Drop-down plan choices is probably a text if I had to guess. Otherwise, we would be able to save them. So go back to that actual UI element, that drop-down.
Yeah, I was just wondering because we've got that in here somewhere. Here. Plan type equals drop down plans choice value.
Oh, it does evaluate to a plan option set. Okay. That means then the data that we need to be saving to the user under subscription needs to be an option set. Otherwise, the data types, as it says, are incompatible and we can't actually save it to one another. Now we may be able to, I'm trying to think. Well, actually, no, go into your data for me real quick. Go back to the user and where subscription is located. Yep, just right here. Perfect. So subscription plan. So it would actually be a result of the step. So go back into your workflow. So it'd be a result of step 2. And yeah. You can select that, but I think it would just be a result of step 2 because we're saving a record.
Okay. Okay, right. Well, we can soon find out, can't we? Result.
And if you'd like to, also in your user, in the actual record for the user that we're testing on now, if you want to go into the the record and change the subscription type to see if that when we adjust it, it does appear on the front end, that would make sense too. Or if you just want to start the flow from the very beginning.
Say the first part again. If I want to go to here,
go to app data for your current user.
Yep.
And then we should be able to add a subscription there. I think we could probably use the one that's already probably existing or on another user just for testing.
Because I need the number, don't I?
Yeah. Or at least you need some. Yeah.
Because I need that. So that is some sort of number that's generated automatically by Bubble to create the relationship, is it?
That's exactly. That's the unique ID or the hash of that subscription plan.
Okay. So if I put that in there. Yeah.
Sweet. Then go to your front end and it should now be there.
Yeah. Okay. So it's that. Yep. So it's that number, that link that's missing. Right. Okay. Cool. Okay. I can. If what I've just put in that workflow isn't quite right, at least I know where the problem is now, so I can play with that. That's cool. That saved me. I've been fathoming that out for about an hour and not quite working it out. So that's great.
I'm glad we got it for you. Sweet. And we'll definitely circle back to your authentication and API.
Given it's you on the call, that would be useful because you built the flow for me for that.
Yeah, I got you there. We'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna hop on to Nathan. Nathan, what do you have for us today?
Hey, Cameron. So mine's a little bit more of kind of just data structure within Bubble, but not actually the Bubble side of it. I do fairly well with that, but I'm struggling with how I have some things set up, and I want to make sure I'm structuring the data the right way. I created a quick diagram of where we're at. So, and I can bounce over to Bubble too if you want to see this on the back end. But I have users, and then this is a little bit of a task management or learning management system. So I have users that will be assigned tasks, and those tasks will be made up of one or more subtasks. So, and then just to go on, a subtask is actually what I'm calling assets, and there's different types, but there'll be videos and there'll be a quiz. There'll be several different asset types that will be made up into subtasks, and a task could be a combination of one or more of those subtasks. So that's the task structure. In my head, a task is something that could be assigned and then marked complete. Mm-hmm. The subtasks, there won't be anything that's complete because they'll be built into that task. But a subtask is made up of let's say videos, multiple types, but just say videos that potentially a user could go and watch videos just if they wanted to get ahead and watch multiple videos. So a video may or may not be a part of a task at that time, but in my mind, if they've watched that video, I want to also mark that they've completed that video in case the next month goes by and they're assigned a task that they've already watched that video. I don't want them to have to watch it again. So
sure, that makes sense.
Users can access all of these different asset types and complete those. So what I'm struggling with is just really just trying to make sure everything's together. So if a user completes and watches one of these videos and completes this, I'm trying to figure out, how do I track this or tie this back to a user, but also potentially tie it back to a task if it's assigned already, or potentially a future task that includes this video in the future. And that's somewhere where my head pops. I can't figure out how to track all of those things, but also tie it back to a completion status of a task if and when it's assigned.
All right. So to make sure that I understand this correctly, you basically want to be able to track, well, everything here in terms of whether or not it's completed. Have this associated with the subtask and a task, but not necessarily this month's task or subtasks. You're trying to basically just make sure that if an asset video has been completed throughout the duration of the course or just the lifespan, I guess, of the user,
yes,
that when a new task is implemented, that if it's been watched, it's already completed.
Correct.
So you're definitely, I think, headed in the right direction, absolutely, with having the asset video having a completed status, or at least a status in general. So if a user does watch that, it is completed. I think that you're also going to want to find that you want to maybe add a list of users to that particular record, and the list of users would increment every single time a user has completed that video. But then in addition to that, I think the way that I've structured things of this nature, sort of like a Russian nesting doll, if you will, where everything is linked to itself. So an asset video will have a subtask ID, and that subtask ID will have a task ID, and so on and so forth. So being that it's going to be variable and that's going to be changing, I think one of the best ways to go about it is to add a list of users to the asset video. And so on completion, then the user that completed that asset will be added to that user list. And so then you'll be able to reference, if this individual is on this list, then mark it as completed for them, both visually and perhaps, well, yeah, no, it would be I'm thinking out loud, but visually you'd be able to show them, hey, if this user is active in this list, show it as completed. And then you could probably just do some back-end logic, some like workflows to where I'm thinking that you could just say like do when true or something to that effect, right? So if a user is existing inside this user list, then the subtask is the task is marked complete, so on and so forth. But I think that the solution to your problem really is adding a list of users to each asset. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the list of users for the asset would be the list of users that have completed this asset.
That is correct.
Okay.
I think that's probably the simplest way to go about it to ensure that you're tracking completion. Especially for the user, being whether or not the user has completed it. Now, I feel like, well, yeah, no, and again, sorry, I'm thinking out loud, but I do think that's probably the simplest way to go about it. Do you have any reservations with that or any?
No. So I had considered that, and I hadn't got that far. Let's say I add that list of users that have completed. At some point when there is a task created that includes a subtask, which is this video, at that point, if a task is assigned to the user and the user is already on this asset video list, what would be the steps, or what would be the timing, or when would that workflow trigger? I'm just not sure how that would work. If I've already completed this and at some point I assign this task to a user, what's going to trigger that this user has already completed at least that one subtask?
Sure. Firstly, before I answer that, I just want to say thank you for designing this flowchart. It makes it very easy to understand everything.
Yeah, I have to do that with Bubble anymore because it's so easy to get so complex and then screw it all up because you don't think through it. And this is the way I have to work my mind anymore, just because it's so much possibility.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple ways to go about this. I imagine that an admin is creating the task and a dashboard.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So I figure that so we're going to be adding a subtask and then linking a video. This asset video could exist on the website or this application before the task is created.
Correct.
So one of the things that you can do is you can, of course, create the task and then assign the video to the subtask. And then upon saving of this task, before you, what I would assume, publish it, right? What you would do is you would send this data to a backend workflow that would iterate through the list of users. And what you'd be doing is you'd be comparing the task list of users, because I think that maybe adding a list of users to the individual task is probably going to help you track in terms of completion. Again, there's multiple ways to do it, but you would be comparing the list of users that exist in a task and a list of users that exist in an asset video. And you would say, if the list of users exist in this asset video but don't exist in this task, add the user to the task, to the list of users inside the task. And so that's one way to go about it, especially if you're going to be focusing on the list of users within a task. So before or after you publish it, you run that backend workflow where it then calculates, parses through the list, and then changes it that way.
So if I have 100 users, the task could be assigned to all 100 users, and there's 25 of them that are already on the asset video list. I would be comparing, the backend workflow would be comparing everyone that's been assigned to the task and looking at everyone that's on the asset video list. And if it's on the list, go ahead and mark that complete.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way that my brain works in terms of thinking, not only in simplicity, but in effectiveness. That will do exactly what you want it to do. So
that, let's say, I really only think, so this is for an organization, and there'll be multiple organizations, but each organization won't be huge. So I'm not talking about, 10,000, 100,000 records. I probably in the 200-300 at most in one organization that would be assigned this task. So the backend workflow wouldn't take long, but is that something you when you create the task and after you assign it, it's triggering that backend workflow, and then when complete, then it could be officially the notification or whatever that next step is. The notification to the user would happen after the backend workflow is complete. And in that backend workflow, there would be the potential that a user would have something already checked off. So you assign it, you run the backend workflow. When that's complete, then you notify all of the users of the new assignment, of the new task.
That's exactly right. That's one thing that you can do. You can have like a condition, like a visibility condition, where let's say it's yes or no, right? Visibility is yes or visibility is no. Or at the very end of this workflow, you can just turn it visibility is yes, or in this case, published is yes, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So you can guarantee that users won't be using that application, looking at their tasks and then seeing it update real time. They'll just have it updated, when they actually access it.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. So let me ask one last question. So everything that you just said, that makes sense. The comparing the two, that makes sense. And I understand the backend workflow side of it after comparing it. So that all makes sense. Is there any benefit of having a user or a separate data type of a list of assets that the user has completed? Is there any, I can't think of one, but I also, again, in my head, I'm not able to wrap completely around it. So there's videos, there's links and documents, quizzes and things like that. So lots of different asset types. But let's say that there's multiple videos. Is there any benefit of keeping a list of the variety of asset types that have been watched? So a user has watched the video, they've completed a quiz, they've reviewed a document, they've visited a link. 4 different asset types, but they're all assets. So is there a benefit of marking or keeping a list of assets that have been completed by the user? Is there any searchability, or is there any any real reason to do that.
Yeah, I think that it may benefit you, especially in terms of size. If we're comparing lists, well, I guess we'll truly be comparing lists regardless, because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be a list of users completed. And actually, let me ask for clarification. Would it be a different record every single time a user completes an asset? Like it would have the unique ID of that asset, and then would create another record for another unique ID for an asset, et cetera, et
yes.
cetera.
So it would have the asset ID, the completed date. So basically, it would be a log of assets that have been completed, and then the asset would be tied to type asset.
Yeah. So thinking about this, it's almost comparable, I think, doing either which way. And that being, regardless, we're going to be looking at a list or lists. I'm trying to. I don't think that there's going to be a huge difference in terms of speed or in terms of effectiveness. Ultimately, I really don't.
Okay.
I think that comparing lists from an asset video of users to a list of users that exist on a task is going to be the same as if we were comparing a list of completed users to that particular asset video, or comparing the completed users to that the list of users on the task. I think that it's going to be exceptionally comparable.
Okay.
So I would say, so the way that I would approach it, like I said, just in terms of simplicity and effectiveness, the way that I would approach it is the list of users. And ultimately, while I think that they're very similar, well, I don't want you, what I was going to say is to test it out and to figure, but I don't want you to spend an inordinate amount of time, developing a data structure and then testing it and then realizing it doesn't work. But ultimately, I think that testing is going to be the most sensible thing. But at least in terms of what I'm delivering now to you, in terms of confidence, I'm very confident that the list of users in both the tasks and the asset videos and the comparison between the two is effective and will work for you.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm familiar with what we're talking about. I just, that validation of helping me think through that's what I've read through, of course, Peter's big long book, and now everything I do, I'm always fearful of screwing it up, because I know there's always a better way. I'm on about my third iteration of bubble knowledge.
Gotcha.
So I look at phase 1 and 2 and it's like, Jesus, what was I even doing? So even now I want to make sure, what's the best absolute way to do it. And sometimes it makes sense, and other times I just can't wrap my head around it. So this is one of those times.
I totally get it. Yep. No worries.
Okay. Cameron, I appreciate it. Thanks for the help.
Can I ask a question actually before you get rid of this?
Sure. Yeah.
Nathan, so I come from more of a relational database background, and I don't have all the performance knowledge that it sounds like maybe is in this book. But to me, wouldn't a sensible approach here? It sounds like, in the interest of that do not repeat yourself concept in object oriented, can we just do user and then to do of type task or video or whatever? We just have one thing that represents, one entity to deal with. And then you have a join table that's a user to do table. And then every time a record is entered in there, there's a field for assigned and a field for completed. So then that way it's if there's a record in the table, likely it's an assignment record, but it sounds like you can also have a record in there that's completed before it's even assigned. But it seems I don't know, the idea of lists, it seems weird to me, because how do you track? You can only track one bit of data with the user in that situation. And it sounds like you want to track multi-dimensional stuff with it, the fact whether it's completed or the fact whether it's assigned. I guess I'm just coming at it from a different paradigm. So I don't know if I'm way off base or if this is just the way to do it in Bubble.
No, yeah, totally valid. At the end of the day, I believe we're going to be comparing lists regardless. And that's the only way that I approached it, with the sort of the thought that I did. But I think everything that you said right there is valid as well. I think with Bubble and the way that it's approaching, or the way that we sort of have to deal with the data and manipulating the records, we're going to have to regardless be parsing through a list to see which user exists under that asset video. And so that's the way that I approached it.
Gotcha. Cool.
Now, I am open to discovering and learning better ways, though. I think that your knowledge is probably awesome. Definitely super invaluable.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say there could be the a different data type that pulls those two together at the same time. I could envision how that could be as well. What I was looking at is I already had these assets, which from I don't know if this is true, but from what my philosophies have been, this data type with the assets and the URL and the time codes and things like that related to this is a separate data type that's already. And at some point I have to assign tasks, which I don't want to assign just a video, because a quote unquote task may include multiple things. So if it was just one thing that I was assigning, then I think you could do that and you could have a field that says assigned versus complete and things like that. But in this case, one task could have multiple different assets that already existed. So in my head, I was building a task by several subtasks, and subtasks were already assets that had to exist already. So I could see situations where you could have one data type that completed these two. I was just looking at it from a management standpoint. I have a CRUD for videos where I can create and read, update and delete them. And at some point, I'm just going to build these assets that already exist into one task. And this is basically, I would save this task so I could pull this task up again. So if a task had 5 videos, I don't have to create that every time. I could just pull, task 1, 2, 3 up again, and it already knows to include these 5 videos.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the case totally being made for having videos treated differently. At least subtasks, maybe. I would think about, I don't know if Bubble even has this capability, but like recursion, where you have a parent ID and you just have a single thing called task. And then what is the parent ID? If there is none, then it's a root level task. But then that way it's like, this accommodates for one level deep, but what happens if you've got sub tasks, and like sure. With that methodology, you only ever do everything to that one entity. You don't have to worry about like replicating the functionality with 2 entities, but I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, not having that. So I've worked in portal type, web development type organizations, but I never had to learn the deep side of the database structure. I knew just enough to say stupid things, but then learning the Bubble side of it, you kind of get you get tossed into here's how Bubble works, and I think that way now, which very well might not be the right way if you're coming at it from your direction. So I can't say that there's a not a better way.
I don't think there's
that.
a right. Yeah, I think there's like many ways to skin the cat, so there's not necessarily one right way to do it.
Yeah, and that's where, so like that Peter's book, or a lot of that information, that testing, you either learn from somebody else or you build it and figure out that you screwed it up and try to fix it. So that the testing and any type of performance, and even in the building stage, that's the worst part of it. It's so hard to figure out that you're not doing it the right way until you dump 10,000 records in it or whatever. So the 10 or 20 test users that I have and 20 tasks are going to fly through no matter how bad I do it. So that's the challenging part. So
cool. Any ways to skin a cat? Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. Thanks for the thoughts. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely thank you, Sean, for your contribution. Let's hop on to you. Actually, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, let me share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, and actually here, while we're on this topic, like I just went through, this is why this is kind of fresh for me, is I just actually went through changing our data model to something that made more sense to me. I just couldn't, like, it felt instinctively wrong to use the idea of lists in multiple entities, because you're representing the same data in 2 different places. And in our case, that involves like this relationship. There's like this 3-way relationship here. And so the idea of like having to store a list of things in 2 separate places, then every time you update it, you got to remember to update it in both places. So that felt wrong to me.
Gotcha.
And what I did was I ended up moving to like this idea of like a join table between them. And that just makes a ton of more sense to me. What I don't know though, is what you're saying is like at scale, I could be shooting myself in the foot. Maybe like there's just a more optimal way performance wise to do this with lists and stuff. But like, to me, this just feels, staying close to the data and honoring that integrity, I think feels right instinctually. So anyways, so my question really is just like right now, the thing that these are all just kind of piddly cosmetic stuff. It's really just around like, I don't fully get the responsive UI stuff. Like I've got it at close, but not good enough. And like, here's a case where this just looks weird to me. Like this is currently how the podcast stacks up for us. And I would think like maybe just wrapping, like making so this text kind of flows in down here and is more compact, and there's like some margins, so it feels like these are just separate episodes, would be a step in the right direction. So maybe that would be my kind of my next thing that I'm trying to figure out, but I don't know how to make the text flow around it and make it still look good on just like a normal page.
Gotcha. Yeah, just making the text look, well, good.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's try this out. If you want to go to your front in there. Yeah.
Yep.
So we have the image, then we have the blurb. Go ahead and click on the text. And open up the pane. Yep, there we go. Go ahead and click on Rich Text Editor. It's right under, right there.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm thinking we may want to do is probably have the image within the Rich Text Editor. But I'm going to open up a page on my my sandbox and just sort of like mess around and see what we can do with that.
Okay.
Let me see if, because if we add an image, we would want it to be dynamic. That's.
Yeah, I mean, to get it to look good in this stretched out view, I feel like if you do that, then there has to be something that guarantees, because it would look weird here if the text kind of wrapped, where there's just like one line of text underneath the image, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. We want to make it look pretty. Just go ahead and I'm thinking, let's see. I'm wondering if we could put the image inside the text instead of having them as two separate elements. I want to see how those relate to each other, but give me 1 second. I have a bunch of data here. We need specific data.
Do you want to share your screen just for the sake of, so people can see what you're doing, or does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that. We are going to go here. Okay, obviously super crazy text. It comes as a URL. No, that's not what we want. And then if we go to the Rich Text Editor, it's a good question. Let's see. I want to take this dynamic text, but in Rich Text Editor, it's obviously not dynamic. Wonder if we put that here, what that'll do. Probably nothing. Oh, it did exactly what we wanted it to do. Okay. Well, let's chalk that up to luck. Okay, so yeah, I totally know what I'm doing with this. So we're gonna go ahead and it looks like add these tags, the BB code tags of image.
Okay.
And so the way that you have it currently set up is you have the image and then you have the text as two separate elements.
Yeah, so just pull that image into there, wrap it with those tags, and then how does it do like the left align? Is that going to work automatically, or?
Yeah, so this text up here, so if we wanted to have it right aligned, it would look like this. And the image is going to inherit those attributes. Where'd it go? I don't think it likes it. Let's take this right. Just put it to the text, just to see if that changes anything. Ooh. No, doesn't like that. So if we just keep it left aligned, and now it's disappeared entirely. So by default, it is left aligned. So let's just see if we get rid of the actual code there. What? Well, I'm not crazy. We all just saw it.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay, yeah, very weird. Let's figure out why that happened.
Did the URL, like maybe take that URL out of?
Oh, I do see that. Yep, didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just do this. So since that's dynamic, let's go ahead and see if we can actually then right align the text just for testing, just to see if we have any kind of control over this. And it does look like it. Okay, cool. So what I would say is the rich text editor is going to be your best friend for this. We want to combine these values here.
Okay.
Using this image, and as you had seen, I just put in the exact same dynamic text that it was. Search for dummies first item image in the HTTPS URL spot. And then you click it, and we don't want this. Should just be able to preview, and it should be good to go. Yep. So hopefully this is a little more in line with what you're looking to do. Have that text wrap.
Yeah, I think so, but in this case, you'd want the text to flow. Like, I think the image needs to be left aligned. You know what I mean? So it's the text should be beside it. In this
You
case.
want the text up here.
Yeah.
So it's. Give me 1 second here. So we're looking for word wrap. Let me see. I believe I had read something just a little bit ago. No, that's the approach. I'm reading something on Slack. Eli, super awesome bubbler, recommended to do exactly what we said, and I'm trying to see if there's any ability to actually adjust the height of it. There's no more than what I have said here. Let's see.
Well, if you were to put like a line left within that image tag, does it recognize in that BB code? Can you just do like
sure, let's try
line?
it out.
Yeah. Well, I was saying as an attribute of the image tag, or does it not work that way?
You're saying like going here and then taking this and assigning it up here?
No. I was saying actually like within that image tag, you know how it's basically like the same way it does in HTML. So you do like image space align equals left within the image tag.
Oh, gotcha. For BB code, it is slightly different.
Okay.
You have to sort of declare them individually. Okay. But we can try to see if we align that left, then the text sort of does what it does. that do anything for us? Or?
Well, I mean, I got the general direction to go with at this point, even if we don't solve it right now. It sounds like the rich text editor playing around in there is the answer here.
Yeah, it's probably going to be your best bet. I wonder if there's any kind of CSS though that we can assign to this. Doing like a float.
Or is there anything with like, because it is using the new Flexbox responsive UI, is there anything with just like containers that pop under one another?
To have a word wrap?
Like,
no,
yeah, a container within a container. Well, okay, I think I know the variables to play with now. Like this rich text editor is an interesting direction, so I can tweak with that.
Yeah, to say the least, it definitely can be pretty powerful. I know exactly what you want. Getting there is definitely yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah. And just so I make sure that I understand, you want the text up here basically flush with the actual beginning of or the top of this container.
Right. Like I want it, if you look at our page problematic.app, I want it to look how it does now on the desktop, but then on mobile, I don't want it to look screwed up how it does now.
Yep. I was just saying if we made the text shorter, what we could do there, because there was a very big block of text. I was wondering if it was impacting the height of it. But we see that this has I want to take because this is all in one group, we can't modify this. It looks like it has a really big margin on it, but vertical line. We do top.
Yeah, that looks promising. Ooh, okay.
But what if we so obviously there's some kind of interesting.
This is just going to involve don't worry about it. I've now at least got a new direction with the rich text editor, and I'm going to also try tweaking with like the containers, the over under responsive containers.
Yeah, this is rich text editor is going to be your friend, at least in terms of getting that text to wrap. I know that for a fact. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It definitely is. I am interested in if you're able to find a non-CSS solution to this.
Okay.
Otherwise, the way that I would sort of go about it in a traditional sense is float this image left and then float the text right.
Okay.
That is like a CSS approach.
Worst case, can I just do like actually serve two different pages based, like do detection on screen size and serve a different page, or is that overcomplicating things?
I mean, you absolutely could do that. But instead of that, I would actually have two elements instead of two pages. I would have a mobile only element where if the screen size is below, like say 600 pixels, then that element instead displays.
Okay.
Do like a conditional where, so when the width of the current page is less than 980 or whatever the number is, then you'll say that this element is invisible or visible, and then vice versa with another element where if it's greater or equal to, and then you'll just do the inverse of whatever it is. So these two will sort of be going hand in hand with each other.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
And yeah, you can overlay them and put them in the same parent container, so it's easier. Especially if you're using the new responsive engine, just put them in a parent container and hide one and show the other, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, that's easy enough. Then we know that it will make it look good. I'll do the what you just showed me in the rich editor for the mobile version, and then I'll do just how it is now for the desktop version.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, and then I'm curious about the word wrap. I'll probably work with that just a little bit to see if I can find anything myself. That is interesting. I think in terms of design, yeah, there's a couple areas where Bubble could probably make it a little bit more easy, intuitive, maybe. But until then, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, rock on. And again, thank you for your contribution earlier. It's always interesting to think about data.
Yeah, man.
All right. John, you've been sitting there patiently waiting for us to circle back to you. Do you want to tackle that authentication?
Yeah, sounds good. Right. Let's get back to where we were. I'll share my screen in a minute. Okay, so let's just log in again just to make sure that we're working with a live session. Okay, so we're still logged in as John Medium, and then these are, looks like all of the different authentications for GSC are failing. Yeah, and it's all failing on authentication, so it's not passing the API key. But I was looking at the data structure, so that is that user. It does have an access token.
Gotcha. Where though is the actual flow to link the Google account? Because how did this individual get the access token? I don't think I had seen that part.
How did this individual get the access token? So the flow is they go through the registration form, they select their plan, they pay for their plan via Stripe, and then Stripe returns them to the Google Search Console. The OAuth 2 screen that Google serves. They say, this is the account I want you to authenticate, and it authenticates me.
Gotcha.
And that is in here. So it's this. So if I show you the design, so it's this screen here.
Yep.
And the workflow is open external website, go there.
Okay. And what's that when refresh token that you've disabled? Is there anything important there?
Don't think so. Can't remember why I disabled that now. I think it might have been that I was trying to do something here. Oh, I know. I think I had the refresh. Yeah, I think it's in a redundant thing because you did it a totally different way.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, the reason that I ask is because inside your database where we actually have access to the access token, it seems like this was probably instantiated several hours ago, and there is no refresh token, meaning that it's probably invalid. It's probably expired, which is one of the reasons why we're getting this invalid kind of error.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's more along lines of when a user does authenticate, we absolutely certainly start that refresh token workflow. So something happened where that didn't. Not certain, but that's what it's looking like.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to remember where we put the refresh flow.
It should all be on the back end. To go to backend workflows. Yeah. And then down on that.
Yeah, I don't remember. It might be. Oh yeah, you are right.
So search for the API key. Or go to step 1, and inside that, let's click on search for API keys. Yep, click that. And then where it says search for API keys, what are we searching for? What constraints are there? Where user is current user, first items, Google refresh token. Okay. We need to be past a refresh token to be able to use the refresh token. So that means when a user authenticates with Google on that redirect page, are we saving a refresh token anywhere?
I don't know. On that redirect page, so that is here.
Yeah, so this is where we trade the code for the access token. Yep, and then we'll create a new one. That's exactly right. Then refresh token, we save the refresh token.
Yeah, you built this. Well, I'll say with me, more for me rather, but yeah.
Sure. No worries. We save the keys, search for API keys count is less than one. Click on search where the only when search for API keys count is less than one. Are we constraining that to the user as well? Okay, yep. My next recommendation is to go to your Google management dashboard page and remove access under this email address, and let's try it from the beginning. Because we should be able to see.
Say that again.
Yeah, you know the my.google.account or whatever it is, so we can remove authentication or remove access of this application from your account.
Right, I see what you mean. It did authenticate correctly though when I signed the user up.
Hey Sean, you have a great one. Oh, he left. Okay, cool.
He's got totally bored of my workflows. Okay. Why don't we try this just in case? Oh no, that won't work. Sorry, I was going to say I could create an entirely new user, but I'm wondering if I've caused because. No,
I'm thinking one of the issues why this may have presented itself is because in the past you had already authenticated with this account. Not super certain, just spitballing.
Yeah, I had. Yeah.
Yeah, in which case then you'll never get a refresh token. Because you only get that refresh token on the first instance.
First time, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why developing with Google is fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I'll do is to get around that, because I don't want to. Yeah. Okay. Right. So, in theory, then, if I log in again, that should work then, shouldn't it?
That's exactly right. It absolutely should.
Okay. So let's do that. So I was thinking to create a new GSC property that I can authenticate against, but that's going to take time because I have got multiple Google Search Console accounts because I know I'm going to have to test all that at some point.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm now logged in again.
So now we need to go integrate though.
Need to what? Sorry.
We need to integrate the Google account. So you have the authentication on your Bubble app, and then you need to do the Google authentication. Isn't that right? You have the integrate page where it has the blue Google button.
I see what you mean. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so that's telling us it's a clean first time. Okay.
You can just click run.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Now we should not get any errors if we go back to our dashboard, or at least hopefully.
I like your optimism.
Yeah. Just trying to be positive.
Right.
Okay. Still get errors.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are on johnmedium@neuralcandy.com.
Yeah.
This is invalid. It says, okay, let's go back to, oh, dude. It didn't create anything because the conditional where we don't create anything if there's already one existing. We need to delete the API key in your database and try this again.
Okay. So get rid of that. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Get rid of that guy. Oh, no, get rid of the record entirely. Because it creates on every instance where one doesn't exist, and only if one doesn't exist. You don't have anything currently that modifies it if one exists.
Got you. Okay.
Which can be implemented, but in terms of testing, just delete this for now. And then, as you know, go back to your apps with access to your account page and yeah, all the fun stuff. Okay, now I'm a little more confident. This should work, and if it doesn't, all I'm gonna say is
No.
Okay, but yeah, now we need to integrate it again, though.
Right.
And then before we do anything, click the run button, but then go back to your database. And did it create a new record?
Yep.
There we go. All right, go back into your app. Let's see. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's looking promising.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Sweet. Yep. Yeah, there you
go.
Very
good. Thank you.
Yeah, so it just boils down to two things. At one point you had already authenticated that guy, so you didn't get a refresh token. It expired. Yeah. But then also, if you were to reintegrate, we don't have a workflow set up where we are making a change to the record. We're only creating a new record. So two things to think about there.
Yeah.
But apart from that, sweet, we did it.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I think what I might do is there is a way of changing the call that you make to the OAuth where it forces, you don't have to remove it from your account. It will just force a reset every time.
Does that exist?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Where is that?
I nicked it, the idea from one of the, I'll send it to you in the Slack group.
Yeah, please do.
From, I think it's one of the zero code plugins where they're doing Google Authentication, and there's a bit you can put in the string you send to Google, and it just says, just force this through.
No way. Oh, dude. Yeah. All right, please send that over. Absolutely, 100% would be amazing.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, really do appreciate everybody for stopping in. Looks like most of the other attendants have left, or attendees. But it is the weekend. John, I know that the pub is calling your name.
The pub is calling. It's gone 7 o'clock here at 7 p.m.
There you go. Exactly.
I'm already getting texts saying, "Where are you?"
Yeah, gotta love the boys. Absolutely. Yep. I just want to say to everybody watching, thank you again for tuning in. We're going to turn off the cameras, go into after office hours, where if you have a project that's a little bit more sensitive, don't want to share some information, we turn off the cameras and help you one-on-one. Join us at ProNoCoders.com on the membership or the developer membership. And until next time, we will see you guys later.